Welcome back to Marathon Phoenix Commentary. This is going to be episode 18 about the levels Tantive IV and then the following expository level, False Dichotomy. Tantive IV is a fair shift from the previous couple of levels. First of all, this level has no renegades on it. It is all 4. It is the first of a handful of levels that are exclusively fighting the 4, which means it's distinctly easier than the last few levels. This is the beginning of like a breather section of the game. It picks up again after about 3 levels from now. The other distinction about this level as opposed to the previous 2 levels is that it is very non-linear. This level, the objective, we're inside the human ship now, and we're trying to locate 4 uplink chips and then put them into 4 slots in order to destroy the ship. Extremely open-ended map, very few closed doors or anything like that. It's just about exploring and getting lost and just having a good time. This map is a direct and deliberate nod to Marathon Rubicon, which is definitely probably the most significant of the third-party scenarios released for Marathon. Definitely one of the coolest scenarios I've played. Well, it's the coolest scenario I've played because that's a pretty small pool. And one of my major inspirations as far as sort of human-designed areas like this one. And so I deliberately use color palettes and architecture reminiscent of certain scenes from that game. Because I'm a filthy hack and I have no originality. And also because I wanted to. I actually really enjoyed making this map. Non-linear levels are not really my strength. They generally, in a game like Phoenix that is so heavily reliant on set pieces, it's extremely hard to design a non-linear map that sort of works in that framework. But I think this level I kind of pulled off. First uplink chip is in. This is a really short level, by the way. Definitely one that I made before the advent of Wayland. So one thing that I sort of was forced to do in order to get the good combat design that I wanted was to be really reliant on enemies teleporting in. Thankfully, that enemies teleporting in is something that is acknowledged by the canon of the universe. Because obviously teleportation is a thing, and you can do it, and so can the aliens. And so that is why I have enemies teleporting in all the time, everywhere. It unfortunately leads to situations like this one, where you walk into an empty room, and then suddenly there's 50 bad guys in it. And there's really no way around having that happen, because if I were to have all the enemies in the room prior to you being there, then, well, 2 bad things would happen. Probably both would happen, but certainly one or the other. The first thing is you would be pretty much unable to approach the room because there's a bunch of bad guys in it, and so you'd be kind of compelled to cheese the fight. Just because you'd walk around a corner and wow, here's, 6 blue hunters and 10 troopers and, some enforcers on high ledges already in this room. I guess I'm gonna have to cheese. And that's not very fun, because I want this game to be more about aggression for the most part. So I have to kind of be more reliant on those ambushes where you are surrounded by bads. The other thing that would happen is most likely the enemies would just kill each other. And if they didn't kill each other, then they would probably be compelled to pursue you whenever possible. So here's one thing that I'm going to compare this game against Doom. And that's enemy behavior as far as like pathing and pursuit and that kind of thing. In Doom, enemies generally do not teleport in. And, every now and again you'll have monsters in a closet. But for the most part, the enemies are just placed in the map already, and they're just sitting there, and you will encounter them as you progress through the levels. This works in Doom for a handful of reasons. The first reason is because enemies don't really pursue you that much in Doom. They will more or less sit in the sector that they're placed in. I mean, that's not exactly true. They will pursue you to a point. But, for the most part, no. They will, if there's a room full of bad guys, and you kind of run through it, or you don't really engage them, you just come back later, they will all still be there. And they'll be just milling around in the room doing whatever they were doing. So they won't all be bottlenecked up against something. Or they won't all be like up at the edge of the zone waiting to kill you. That's number one. Number two is that Doom doesn't have any real long-range weapons. And the enemies are not really threatening at long range either, except for like shotgunners and chain gunners. But Doom is not really a long-range game. So you don't really have to worry about cheesing your way into a room. It's just not really an issue. And the third reason is monster infighting is a little different than it is in Marathon. Well, it's actually substantially different. The first thing is how enemy health versus versus player health is balanced. Because an attack may do a lot of damage to you in Doom. Say a Hell Knight will hit you for 40 damage. 40 damage is a lot to a player, but not to a Hell Knight. Which I don't know the health values off the top of my head, but they got lots of health, so they can take several hits. The second thing is enemies of the same type do not do damage to each other. So if you have a room with 4 Hell Knights in it, they will never kill each other. I mean, there are a few exceptions to that rule, but as a very general and generally consistent rule, they won't kill each other. Whereas if you had a room full of hunters in Marathon, you could eventually friendly fire your way into having them all kill each other, and you could do that without firing a shot. Very cheesy way to play this game. And also in Marathon, there are certain enemies that go berserk, like troopers, where if they take enough damage, they will go into like a super mode and just kill everything that's anywhere near them. And so that was kind of a long-winded ramble to describe why I can't put monsters in a room before the player is in the room. And therefore why I'm so reliant on enemies teleporting in. Especially in non-linear maps where I can't control exactly where the player is going to be at all times. And basically it boils down to the fact that Doom is pretty much a better game than Marathon is. Sorry, Marathon fans, but it is true. It is certainly a game that has held up much, much better than Marathon has. Anyway, I am actually wrapping up this map already. Like I said earlier, this is a non-linear map, and as such, if you know what you're doing, you can clear it very, very rapidly. Because I kind of designed it in sort of a Rubicon style, Rubicon maps are notoriously impossible to navigate, with a lot of dead zones and a lot of repetition. and a lot of like circular areas and stuff like that. And I tried to replicate that in this map, not to the same degree, but there's a lot of redundancy in the map design. And there's several rooms in this playthrough that I didn't visit, and some that I just barely passed through or kind of skirted around. And that's very different from how a player would explore this level the first time. When I go back to play Rubicon, I'm generally familiar with how those levels work, so I can also power through them in an efficient way. I guess that's sort of the downside of a nonlinear map, is that once you know the one true path, you miss out a lot in repeat playthroughs of the joy of being lost in a hell maze full of bad guys without saving. Anyway, I also included the next expository level in this video rather than in the next video. This chapter is Wrath of the Four. It is chapter 5. It is a huge style shift from the previous chapter, and it is this is the chapter that is new to the special edition of Phoenix. In the original version of Phoenix, spoiler alert, you get basically kidnapped by Phoenix, the AI, who is sort of in control of the Renegades and being controlled by the Renegades. You're kidnapped by him in order to subvert the Renegade menace. And this chapter exists to flesh that out more, and you will see more in the next episode. Thank you for watching.